up, y'all? Hey, blessings to you, Natasha. Listen, I love the renovations you're doing to your home. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. It looks amazing. It really looks amazing. I said, wow. Sis is low-key flipping her own home. I love it. I love home improvement stuff of every type. You know, I just love it. I love it. Even though the process can be kind of chaotic. I love the outcome. I love the outcome. It's a blessing, and I hear the Lord saying it was a long time coming. So I praise God for the fact that you're able to accomplish that. Our declaration on today is going to be give yourself more grace. I'm sorry. Yeah, our declaration is give yourself more grace. Yeah. Give yourself more grace. That is going to be, it is worth it, Natasha. It is, especially when you can come home and it feels like home. It feels good. You know, you have a sense of accomplishment, and you know there's a deeper level of comfort that just comes from renovating. You know, it makes you mentally feel better, emotionally feel better, you know. So I definitely agree. Come on, give yourself more grace. Give yourself more grace. So this morning has been an interesting morning. I didn't come on yesterday because I just simply gave myself grace yesterday. I didn't realize that was what I was doing yesterday, but I was really physically tired on yesterday. And so I literally rested, I slept, I gave myself the chance to just have physical rest, even though I felt like, God, I've already taken one day of rest earlier this week. I knew that physically my body just needed more rest. And so when I woke up this morning, you know, like, let me back up. Yesterday was one of those days where I just didn't worry about anything. I didn't choose to busy myself up with busy work with, you know, I didn't even work out yesterday. It was just a day where I wanted rest. And so this morning I woke up and, of course, on my walk with God, excuse me, you guys, it's lotion. But on my walk with God this morning, it was an interesting walk. It was an interesting time with God. Those walks for me are those times where, you know, I just really take time to talk to God about whatever it is I'm dealing with, whatever my thoughts are. Is that one-on-one time apart from the other times when I'm talking to God where I can just, it's peaceful out and I just let God deal with me about the day, about different things like that. And so one of the things that God was asking me this morning it was really the only thing he wanted me to talk about. He said, talk to me about your mother. And it was just one of those things that I really didn't want to talk about. I don't know if y'all have ever experienced that, where he wants you to talk about something that like you're kind of trying to put out of sight, out of mind. You just don't want to think about it, don't want to talk about it, don't want to revisit it. You know, for me, I felt like, God, I'm just trying to move forward, right? And so as I'm talking about it, I finally worked up the courage to kind of just talk to God about it. Just releasing how I felt, releasing, you know, forgiveness in my heart, you know, forgiveness, you know, that was really the gist of it. Last night, I ended up having a dream, and I knew that dream was targeting, you know, just trauma that stemmed from my childhood. So I knew that as I was talking about it, that what God wanted me to release was just forgiveness, right? And then the Lord made the connection between me resting yesterday and the conversation that I had with him today. And the Lord told me, he said, you gave yourself grace yesterday. And I'm gonna be real, yesterday, even though I needed physical rest, there was still like, my heart was just a little bit heavy. You guys ever dealt with that? Like, my heart was just truly heavy. And I didn't care to think about why. I just said, okay, I'm just gonna sleep it off. I'm gonna do what I need to do. And I'm gonna just let that be it. But what he was telling me this morning, he said, you did what a lot of my children do. right? When they go through tough times, when they have setbacks during the week. Hey, Miss Sally, he said, you did what most of my children do. You just try to run from it. And it's not intentional running away from dealing with whatever it is that you're going through. It's kind of like, let me busy myself up so that I won't have to think about it. And the Lord told me, he said, just like it caught up to you, he said, it always catches up to my children sooner or later. What's up, y'all? He said, it always catches up when my children are going through things that affect them on an internal level. He said, what most of my children do is they try to just keep pushing. Anybody ever been there where you're really going through something and it's really affecting maybe your level of confidence, maybe your level of faith, right? And you just, instead of just dealing with that thing, you busy yourself up because you figure, well, maybe if I just work towards being productive in something else, maybe this will solve the issue of what's internally happening to me. Like, since it happened with my mom, like I told God on one walk, and again this morning, I said, Lord, my heart just feels like you're doing surgery or something. Like, even though I felt free when I cut ties, you know, internally, like, I can't explain it. You just can feel when God is dealing with your heart about something. You can feel when healing is taking place. You can feel when hurt is present in your heart. You can just feel it. And so this week was one of those weeks where I did what most of us do. I busied myself up with being productive. And it was a productive day for like a productive week for like business. It was a productive week when it came to, you know, handling different things. When it came to my workouts, it was just productive because that was where my focus was. And it's like on yesterday, I hit a wall where I couldn't do anything else. And so I slept still running from what happened. And so as God was telling me that, he also told me, he said, it's okay to acknowledge the fact that you don't have a perfect life. It's okay to acknowledge the fact that you've gone through something that has hurt you. He said, this is what grace looks like. And he also said, a lot of my children haven't misconstrued that acknowledging something hurtful makes them stay stuck. It means that they're not over it. But he said, but there's freedom in acknowledging whatever it is that you went through, whatever it is that you experienced. And he said, not many of my children give themselves the grace to just deal with what happened. Yeah. See, I'm not the only person that has been going through things that hurt, going through unforeseen circumstances. I'm not the only person that has been feeling as though, like, God, even though I'm functioning doing my day-to-day tasks, it feels like you're doing something in my heart. And I don't mean like the feeling of having a heart attack or any of that. Like, you can literally feel when God is dealing with your heart. It literally feels heavy. And today I gave myself the grace to acknowledge, like, Lord, this week was rough on me. And it was so rough that even though I'm being productive in all of these other areas, my heart feels heavy. Anybody ever experienced a heavy heart? And it's not that I'm depressed. It's not that I'm anxious. It's not that I'm growing weary. It's just I've gone through something that genuinely hurt my heart. And it's like, as soon as I was able to release and give myself that grace to say, okay, God, that really hurt. I've been trying not to say that it hurt me. I've been trying not to say that it affects me because I didn't want to stay stuck in it. I didn't want that thing to affect everything else that you're doing in my life. I didn't want to be derailed. I didn't want to be distracted from what you needed me to do. So I chose not to feel it. Anybody ever been there? Like, there are some things that you go through where, like, you automatically know this is a distraction. You go through your life journey with God long enough, you begin to understand that sometimes God allows certain things to happen, but sometimes the things that happen, the enemy sends to distract you. And so it's like, okay, God, instead of being distracted, I'm going to just power through. It's kind of like working out, right? I can be like, this week I was kind of sore from the workouts because I really pushed myself. And each and every single day, my mindset was, I'm going to just power through. But the Lord told me, he said, in this life that you live, I don't call you to power through. Because powering through can only get you so far. And he says it gets to a point where a person just powers through the things that hurt them, the things that scarred them, the things that traumatize them, before it gets them to a point where they are burnt out. And he said it's in that moment where my child gets burnt out, where they have no choice but to deal with it. And he said my children don't realize that in dealing with whatever it is that you're going through, dealing with the feelings that you feel, it gives you the strength that you need to get throughout everything else and to continue to move forward. I don't know who this word is for, but God says to give yourself grace. Like, give yourself the grace to acknowledge when you actually need time to rest. Because there are some of us where we are just workaholics. We know that we be tired, right? But we just keep pushing. There are some of y'all where today God is saying, give yourself more grace to rest. Give yourself grace in knowing that you're not perfect. But then there are other people on another spectrum where God is saying, I see you. I see your heart. I see that you really want to live a life that pleases me. But give yourself the grace to experience the emotions, right? From the things that you've gone through. Because it's in acknowledging what you've gone through, how you felt by it, that revelation can come, that wisdom can come, that insight that can only come from God, that it comes. And those things are not meant to slow you down, but it's meant to equip you to continue going, to not make the same mistakes, to accept the things that you need to accept. And it also gives you the strength to move forward. There are some of y'all where you have not been dealing with the things going on in your heart. Ooh, I feel that. Some of y'all haven't given yourself the grace to deal with the fact that, okay, God, this previous season or this current season, it's weighing on me, God. It's weighing on me. So today, God wants me to encourage you to give yourself whatever grace it is that you need, whatever grace it is. And I knew that when he told me I wasn't perfect, and when he said, give myself grace, I knew that what he was saying is give yourself the grace to understand and to realize and to accept that the only perfect person was Jesus. The only perfect one was Jesus. Life isn't meant to be perfect. And a lot of times we power through to such a degree where we're chasing after perfectionism, operating perfectly as a business owner, operating perfectly as a sister, a brother, a teacher, operating. I pray that I'm making sense. Chasing perfection. And the truth of the matter is that some of us don't even realize that that's what we're chasing. Perfectionism. It shows up in even emotions. How some of us chase to be perfect in our emotions, to never deal with disappointment, to never deal with frustration, to never deal with heartache and pain. But the truth of the matter is we need those experiences. I'm going to say it again. We need those experiences. I was thinking, briefly yesterday about what happened with my mom, and really just even the last season, all of the hits that I took. And, I told God this, and I didn't even realize how prophetic it was. Blessings to you. I said, Lord, the pain of my past, it produced purpose. Whew. I said, Lord, the pain of my past, it produced purpose. It gave me wisdom. Yeah. I'm going to say that again because somebody needs to hear that. The pain that you have been dealing with, the pain that you've been running away from, it is there to produce purpose, to birth it out of you. I ain't saying it feel good because it absolutely doesn't. It'll make the strongest person a crybaby. I'm going to be real. I've never been a crier. Never. I've never been a crier. And to the person that needs to hear this, it's okay to admit to God that you are not okay. Yeah. It's okay to admit to God that you are not okay. There are some of y'all that battle loneliness. I don't know. Oh my gosh. This word is heavy. There are some of y'all that battle loneliness. You push through, you power through, but deep down you know that you're busying yourself up so that you won't have to face that alone kind of feeling. And the Lord says it's okay to acknowledge that that is how you feel. And the truth of the matter is that a lot of times why we choose to run from certain things that we feel is because deep down, doubt begins to set in because maybe we've waited a long time and nothing has happened, right? And it just seems like, God, this thing just feels like it is never going to happen. It is okay to admit to God, like, Lord, I don't want to feel this way because I know that you're here, but physical companionship is something because I don't really have it. The isolation is getting to me and I'm feeling a little bit lonely because it's like a person that battles addiction. You can only work through that if you admit that there's a problem. Yeah. I feel you, Pastor Ron. And what God is saying on today is just simply that. Give yourself grace to admit that you're not perfect. Give yourself the grace to admit that your battles are what they are, that you're struggling in whatever area it is, because then and only then, can you move forward from it. Let's be real, because some of us haven't been admitting the things that, like, he wants me to share this, because some of us haven't been admitting the things that we've been dealing with on an internal level, right? It taunts us. Where every single day, it may be every other day, once a week, you see something that triggers that thing. And really what it is it's not the enemy, but it's God giving you an opportunity to say, okay, God, this is bothering me. This is how I feel about it. And to really be raw and open with God. Like for me, I realized that with a dream that I had last night. I woke up this morning from a dream. And in that dream, facts, in that dream, because it's like, I feel you, because we don't want to go backwards. We don't want to revert. And honestly, some things hurt us to the core that the thought of even thinking about it makes us feel like if I think about that, it's going to break me. It is going to literally destroy me. Like that was how I felt with my mom. Like, God, if I sit there and think about what it is that she actually told me and how deep of a cut that really was, I feel like it is going to prevent me from being who you need me to be, from doing the things that I know I need to do. I felt like if I sit and think about the fact that this lady has told me, pretty much, you won't talk to me until you won't ever talk to me. Even when I die, you're not going to talk to me. She's pretty much said, I'm not ever talking to you again. Right? I felt like thinking about that would destroy me. So I didn't think about it. Surface level, I thought about it, but not on a level where I could process how I felt about it. You know? So on last night, the dream that I had, it was a weird dream. It was a very weird dream. Yesterday, I was just tired. I slept on the sofa. I ain't even gonna lie. Forgot to put Bo in his cage. I wake up. He is above my head, knocked out. I'm like, how did I not put you in your cage last night? Like, for real. But in this dream, it was like, it was so weird. My mother was in the dream. My father was in the dream. It's like I was back in college, because there were some things that I lost in college that I had to walk away from, only to find out that God had me walk away from it. Because had I not, I would have been in the same trouble that everybody else would have been in, right? And so in this dream, it's like I'm being taunted by things that I had to walk away from, people that left me, right? People that wronged me. I mean, the dream was so very weird, ungrateful people. It's like all of that hurt bubbled up. And I had a dream and I knew it wasn't demonic because I remembered it. And so I told God this morning, I said, it's just my subconscious. And it was my subconscious. But really why that showed up in my dream was because God said, you need to deal with this childhood trauma. Like your mom talking about that, right? Your mom saying what she said. It triggered like how you felt when your dad died, which is why he was in the dream. The question that I was asking in the dream, because it was almost in the dream like my dad was alive, but I was under the impression that he was alive. And the question that I asked my mom, right? The question I asked my mom in the dream was, why did he leave me? Why didn't he come back for me? Right? But in all actuality, that was how I felt about my mother, right? You're doing exactly, you're abandoning me. And so that dream popped up because God needed me to talk about how her saying what she said was a trigger and how I felt when I lost my dad. I pray that I'm making sense. I pray that I'm making sense. You cannot heal from what you won't acknowledge. He says, I need to say that again. You cannot heal. You cannot grow from the things that you won't acknowledge. Some of us have a habit because we say, quote unquote, well, I don't want to give the devil that power. Not understanding that you're giving him the power by not acknowledging to God that, hey, this affected me, God. Hey, this triggered a trauma response in me, God. Hey, this hurt me. Because by us not acknowledging, not opening up to God, it closes off the relationship that God wants to build. Yeah, it closes it off. I pray that I'm making sense. It closes it off. And so as I got done talking to God and got done just pretty much just forgiving, saying, God, this is how I feel, but I don't want to stay here. I don't want to continue I don't want to let this get me down. I want to move forward. I want to move forward. Right? That was really where I was. And it dawned on me as I was making my way back home that what was really happening was I was giving myself the grace to grieve someone that's not even dead. It may be different for you. He says, I need to say that again. What was happening today? As I was walking, I realized this conversation is about me grieving someone that's not even dead. That's the worst kind of grief. She ain't dead, God, but I gotta grieve her. I have to. She maliciously said that to hurt me. I have to grieve you and you're not even dead. And immediately as I made that connection, it's like the load lifted. The load lifted. But I'm gonna be real. Giving myself grace in that situation also made me look at everything else in my life, every other situation in my life, to see, like, God, am I giving myself grace in all of these other areas? Right? There was a point even in ministry where I felt like I always had to be available for people. But I realized that as I've grown, I've learned to give myself grace. Like, God, I've learned to give myself the grace to not always be available. I've learned to give myself the grace to take rest when I need it. I'm giving myself the grace to just feel whatever it is I need to feel in the moment and to be okay with the fact that I'm not God. I'm not Jesus. I'm not perfect. And the Lord responded to me making that connection. He said, it's only when you start giving yourself this level of grace that life becomes more enjoyable. You don't feel as weighed down by things because you're actively dealing with them. You're actually giving yourself the grace to feel what you need to feel. You ain't staying stuck, but you're feeling what you need to feel. And because you're feeling what you need to feel, you can flow freely throughout life. feeling the freedom that came from Jesus. I don't know who needs to hear this, but give yourself grace. Give yourself grace running that ministry. Give yourself grace running that business. Give yourself grace in that marriage. Give yourself grace. Give yourself grace when it comes to whatever the situation. Give yourself grace. Can I just get somebody to type in on the screen? I'm giving myself grace. I'm giving myself grace to feel. I'm giving myself the grace to rest. I'm giving myself the grace to not be perfect. I'm giving myself the grace to make mistakes. I'm giving myself grace. I'm giving myself grace. Because this season is nothing like the last few seasons. The last season, I didn't give myself grace. And because I didn't give myself grace, that season almost took me out. And I think for me, like giving myself grace, it started when I lost Bella. That was when I really started to give myself grace, because I realized emotionally I couldn't keep going. Right? Give yourself grace. Well, however you need to give yourself grace today, give yourself grace. If you need to cry, cry. That's for somebody. If you need to cry, if you need to let out a wail, let it out. Let it out. Let it out. If you need to give yourself grace, like in the form of not always being so readily available to people at a rate that it drains you, do that. Do that. Give yourself the grace that you need. Because you can't keep being there showing up for everybody else and not having, the ability to show up for yourself. Give yourself grace. Maybe you, like me, you went through some things. Maybe people have said some hurtful, some malicious things, some straight up hateful stuff to you. Maybe they've done some shady stuff to you. Give yourself the grace to feel that frustration, that disappointment, that hurt, so that you can move on, so that this week can be a week where it no longer taunts you, so that this week can be one of the most productive weeks that you've had, and not because you're running from something, but because you've dealt with it. Right? Because only then can you have the freedom to receive the clarity that you need from God as far as how to move forward. It wasn't until I gave myself the grace to grieve Bella that God gave me beauty for my ashes. Yeah. It wasn't until I gave myself the grace to grieve her properly. And it still hurts, but not to the extent that it did. But it wasn't until I dealt with that I could receive beauty for my ashes. For some of y'all, the blessing that you're waiting for, the instructions that you're waiting for God to give you, the breakthrough that you so desperately need, is waiting on you to give yourself the grace to feel what you need to feel and to move forward. Give yourself the grace. Wow. And that's it. If you can receive this, can you just tell God, thank you? And Natasha, it was meant to be that way. I don't even know what happened. But what I do know is that whoever that person was, God just exposed what was there all along. He said he just exposed what was there all along. And I don't know why he wants me to tell you this. You need to find, I don't know if you're at a church, but you need to find a new ministry to start tithing at. You need to find a new ministry to tithe at. He said, don't worry about catching up. Just start. Go where he leads you. Just start. This is truly a season of like new beginnings for so many of us, not just you, Natasha, so many of us. It's just God is bringing the newness that we've been waiting for, that we've been so desperately needing. But in order to receive it, it starts with grace. It starts with grace. Listen, there are 7 of y'all that need to sow. whether you are, catching this now or on the replay, the seed number is 17. Whether it's $1.17, whether it's $17, whether you're sowing in increments of 17, whether you sow 117, that is the seed number. The seed title is, I'm giving myself grace. Because it's truly like what so many of us need to start doing. It's just giving ourselves grace. We are not perfect. God doesn't expect us to be perfect. He doesn't expect us to have the perfect emotions. He doesn't expect for our actions to always be perfect. He knows that we fall short daily. That every single day at some juncture, we might make a misstep. We might make a mistake somewhere along the way. He knows. But he loves us still. He loves us still. And so that is it. That is it. If you know you need to sow, I should not have to tell you that you need to sow. The Holy Spirit should be dealing with your heart right now. For some people, it may feel like there's a little bit of conviction, and it may be a conviction to move, a conviction to sow. Right? Some of y'all run away from sowing because you don't want to deal with the thoughts of, what if I don't have enough for what I need to do? That's what God just said. But if you know that God is dealing with you in this moment about sowing seed, if you know that this word was for you, I encourage you to just simply follow God. It doesn't matter if you sow 17 cents. Doesn't matter if you sow 1717, if you sow 1700, if you sow 117.17, you let God lead you. And so that's it. To those of y'all that need prayer for anything, or have a testimony to share, we are in a season of testimonies. And Miss Allen, you got some more money coming to you. You literally have, it's another, like, it's like a lump sum is what I hear. You have more money coming to you. But that is it, y'all. I love y'all. I'm rooting for you. And so until next time, y'all. Peace.